not commit the genocide against the people of Palestine without the billions in U.S. military aid that our government is sending them. And that aid is coming out of our paychecks and should be funding our needs, should be funding our already underfunded education, public health, infrastructure. And as a city worker, we're forced to scrape by on what little public funding we can receive, while the U.S. military receives $1.5 trillion of funding each year. Shame. Shame. Palestine is a labor issue because many of our workplaces arm Israel, right? And it's not just if we work for weapons manufacturers, all types of factories, logistic companies, tech, academia, all provide the technology, weapons, transportation, research, tools that enable Israel to commit its genocide in Gaza.
Do we ever cross a picket line?
No!
Will we ever cross a picket line?
No!
That's right. And we're here today to say that the Palestinian Trade Union call for solidarity since October 7th and for decades before is a picket line. And the most fundamental principle of being a union member and a worker is that an injury to one is an injury to all.
So start organizing today, because our siblings in Palestine do not have the privilege to do so. This is why me and my coworkers at 32BJ are unionizing. Workers having a voice in their workplace empowers not only themselves, but it empowers those who do not have the ability to do so for themselves. It is this organized power that we have that we must use to pressure the powers that be to enact a permanent ceasefire and end the occupation. We are being told to go and vote for Kamala Harris and to keep in place the status quo that quote-unquote protects us. But how can we expect them to truly protect us when they won't listen to us? A permanent ceasefire is a popular opinion among all Americans, and yet they refuse to listen to us. We are at a point where voting is not enough. We as workers must come together and use the power of our labor, that our labor produces, not only to secure ourselves, but to guarantee to those who cannot that we have their backs.
Thank you so much. All right, so my name is Elias Holtz. I'm with the Writers Guild of America East. I'm also with the Freedom Socialist Party in Harlem. I marched here in Labor Day last year with my union, and the energy and power that we felt in the wave of strikes that summer was incredible. We are now calling on the labor movement to use that same energy and power to stand up for our Palestinian siblings and end the genocide in Gaza. There's no question that our unions have power. We have money, we have organization, we have members, right? There's no questions that unions have power. That's why the Democrats want our money, they want our turnout, they want the unions to back them. So there's no question that we have power as workers and as unions. The question is, how will we use that power? Will we use that power to stop the war machine? Because we can. Will we use that power to stop our tax dollars from being paid for bombs that bomb children? Because we can.
Palestinian liberation is a labor issue. And as cultural workers, our labor helps uphold the rhetoric that justifies genocide. From publishing Israeli propaganda to silencing Palestinian voices, our bosses keep finding ways to demonstrate their commitment to Zionism. And so, if we want to see the fall of Zionism within our lifetime, we must first fight the bosses, regardless of whichever form they take. Which is why, when our union leadership turns away, let us remind them that as rank and file workers, we are the union.
My name is Colin Buckingham. I'm an actor, filmmaker, and disability advocate. I'm a union member of SAG-AFTRA, the New York lead organizer for SAG-AFTRA and Sister Guild members for Ceasefire, and I'm part of Film Workers for Palestine. As it has been said, an injury to one is an injury to all. In Palestine, we have witnessed fellow journalists, writers, poets, actors, dancers, and more injured and killed by the IOF. To this day, more than 116 journalists have been systematically murdered, all while wearing their press vests, all killed for reporting the truth and showing the world what the IOF doesn't want us to see. In Gaza, the IOF has directly caused more child amputees than anywhere or any time on Earth. These injuries, these deaths are all funded by our tax dollars, enabled by our politicians, enabled by our labor, ignored by our union leadership, and supported by our elected officials. Despite the majority of Americans supporting an immediate halt of weapons transfers, Biden, Harris, and Trump have pledged continual, unconditional military support for the IOF in defiance of international and U.S. law.
And I look around and I'm so happy to see so many other labor sectors doing the same. From teachers, doctors, nurses, city workers, journalists, writers, actors, auto workers, even lawyers. The list goes on, all standing up together to demand justice and freedom for those who are complicit institutions are allowing to endure genocide. However, though our movement for justice is growing and has grown, our work is far from done. And I want to recenter and remind us all that the genocide is still raging on in Palestine. In Gaza, there are lines for miles of trucks of aid and medicine being blocked from entering due to Israel. In Gaza, bombs, which are designed, manufactured, and sold in America, are falling on schools, mosques, churches, hospitals, you name it, they've bombed it. In Gaza, where my people are fighting tooth and nail every day to survive a genocide. Each and every day is a struggle there. And it's not just in Gaza. In Yatta, armed settlers who are guarded by the IOF are daily harassing and attacking Palestinian shepherds and farmers and communities, burning their farms, destroying their livelihood, and trying to ethnically cleanse them for their Zionist projects.
Their children are not returning to school. While I was thinking about back to school days, 10-year-old Tala Abu Ajwa was begging to go outside and roller skate. She was bombed by Israel, killed in her pink rollerblades. She and tens of thousands of Gaza's children will never return to school. The lives of our children here in New York City are not more valuable than the lives of Gazan children. Every mother, no matter where she lives, wants the same thing for her children: to be safe, to learn, to thrive, and to dream. Yet, Palestinians are forced to bury their children, victims of apartheid and occupation. We are here today to demand action. I call on New York City unions to divest from Israel's brutal apartheid state. We cannot allow our pensions, our savings, and our labor to fund the destruction of Palestinian lives.
UAW Local 2325 for Palestine. You know, our employers tried and are still trying to silence us. Hell, some of our own members, the Zionists in our local, have tried to silence us. They filed a meritless complaint in court to try to keep us from voting on a resolution to support a ceasefire in Gaza. To support the end of the Israeli occupation, our resolution to end the Israeli occupation and workers' right to engage in political speech and speak out against the genocide being committed by Israel in Palestine. They lost, dismissed, and our resolution passed.
Meta has been suppressing Palestinian content on Instagram and Facebook and denies that it is happening. Countless users. All I saw on my Instagram when this war started was Meta is suppressing Palestinian content. There have been, Elizabeth Warren sent multiple letters to Mark Zuckerberg on explaining all of this concerns about suppression of Palestinian content. Human Rights Report wrote a 51-page report on the ways that Meta is suppressing Palestine. But internally and externally, Meta denies that this is happening. It does not address the public. When employees have raised this concern, they tell us, we are not censoring Palestine, you don't know what you're talking about. Back in December, I wrote a letter to Meta leaders about all of this suppression and how angry employees are because they were deleting posts that we were writing internally. Even if we were trying to offer condolences to our colleagues, if I just said, I am sorry you lost family in Gaza, in my Muslims employee resource group, they would delete those posts. So we wrote a letter, and I collected over 450 signatures. Meta deleted that letter, kicked me out for 3 months, and refused to acknowledge that letter. Employees put together a 47-page report on all the ways Meta is censoring Palestine. Not only did they ignore it, when I made a personal copy of that report, Meta fired me.